Okay, folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier, and I just enjoyed the movie Jesus Revolution. Just for the record, there is no "the" in the title, it's just Jesus Revolution. Kelsey Grammer, who you may remember from Frasier, and I believe that's having a reboot of sorts coming up, and also Cheers before that, where he played the same character for Dr. Frasier Crane. So he is one of the stars. I guess you could say this is an ensemble piece. The movie takes place in the summer of love, baby, 1969, based on true events. Time magazine apparently covered this story way back when, I guess in 1970 or some such thing. The magazine article was published that the director of this film discovered, and he wanted to make a movie about it, so he did. So many things I can say about this experience I just encountered, so to speak. Going to the theater tonight is it's Wednesday night. It's 2 days before this movie goes worldwide. Special insiders only. Sneak preview, of course, if you get AMC monthly subscription like I do to support the cinema, you get to see these wonderful things in advance. And it's not as expensive as you'd think. Of course, AMC should be giving me a little cutback for all the promotion I do for their monthly subscription plan, but they don't. But anyway, let's discuss my experience. I go in there, and I guess a couple of church groups had come to this movie tonight, which is fine. They're allowed. They can buy tickets like everybody else, and they were very enthusiastic, clapping and cheering Christians in certain points of the film. I've been to a couple of movies where people get excited or they laugh or whatever. Or horror films, people tend to scream at the theater, scream at the movie, but I haven't been to a movie in a while where people were actually clapping and kind of getting into the movie, which was nice. So you have all these converging storylines. It's not hard to follow. It's not Pulp Fiction, 1994, but it did feel at times like 11 pounds in a 10-pound bag, you know what I mean? Because it's a Christian movie, I won't say 11 pounds of shit in a 10-pound bag, but you get my point. You've got, God, so many characters. You've got Greg, who lives with his mother in an RV down by the river. Interestingly enough, I recognize the mother. I believe, I want to say, Kimberly Paisley Williams. And I was like, what's that name? I remember her. Who is she? And as I'm looking at her face, she actually was the bride in Father of the Bride way back when, 1992, I believe. The daughter of Steve Martin in that film, as I am the son, I should say, Christ, of Sybil Shepherd in Hard Luck myself. So I know what it's like to work with celebrities and so forth. And Kimberly Paisley Williams has had quite the career herself. And here she is in this movie. And it made me realize, wow, time does fly. Because I remember when she was the young starlet in those movies, and now she's playing the mom. So basically, her and Greg have this kind of tumultuous relationship, mother and son. She's, addict of sorts to alcohol, to men, to her own addictions. And Greg is trying to get under her thumb. He's going to some type of military high school there in California. And he kind of peers to the, kids in another school, like kind of a school that's kind of been infested or taken over by the hippie kids. And of course, he sees a beautiful blonde. So there you go. So basically, as soon as he sees the beautiful blonde, he's going to do whatever it takes, Greg that is, to, get to know her, so to speak, and do whatever she's doing. And what she's doing is going to see Janis Joplin this weekend. So she and her little friends scoop up Greg at a military school on the weekend, and they all go off to the fucking Janis Joplin concert and the hippies and the drugs and all that stuff. Da, 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 da. Meanwhile, what's the other guy? All these names. Is it Chuck? Chuck is played by Kelsey Grammer, the aforementioned. He is running a church. The church is kind of old school. It's kind of not doing so well with the amount of people coming and so forth. And if you know anything about churches, they kind of rely on people for their donations and the little pass the basket routine to stay in business. And yes, it is a business, you know, tax free. So basically, his church is kind of suffering. He's watching the nightly news and seeing all the hippies protest the war and all those good, you know, 1969 things we've seen a million times. Him and his wife are so concerned. They have a young daughter, a young budding daughter who's maybe 20 years old, 22, some such thing. She's kind of hip to the scene, man. And the daughter goes off driving around, rocking out to some type of, I'm trying to remember what song was on the radio. And war, good God, y'all, what is it good for? She's singing along, and she sees this interesting hitchhiker, and she's, oh, you know, and the guy has a very Jesus-esque look. This is our first introduction to the character. The real man's name, I guess, in real life was Lonnie Frisbee, kind of an interesting name. But basically, she's intrigued by this gentleman. You know, this is back in the days when people gave hitchhikers rides. Now, you know, you see people begging for change at the intersection. You roll up your window and you fucking lock your doors. But back then, people actually did give people rides and so forth, from what I understand. And he hops in the car and he starts, you know, preaching the good word. And she's like, oh, you've got to meet my dad. So, you know, one of the swerves of this movie is I thought that we were headed towards some type of romance between Lonnie and the daughter there. Well, that did not happen. So the daughter brings Lonnie home to meet Dad. He's all flabbergasted. She reminds him that earlier in the proceedings, he said that he wanted to meet a hippie, and, you know, so now he's got a hippie to meet. So they're talking, and basically he's discovering, oh my God, this hippie is just like me, just in a different clothing. So he's bonding with the hippie. The hippie's telling him how the modern day church has got its doors closed to the hippie kids that are all doing acid and LSD and Timothy Leary and the great Kool-Aid experiment and all this crap to get to know something bigger than them, man. And what they're really looking for is God. So basically, you know, Kelsey Grammer, Fraser, Chuck, whatever the fuck, he opens up his church and his heart, and he starts putting our buddy there, Lonnie, and this band called Love Song, he starts putting up at them at the front of the church. This, of course, divides the church. The old conservatives do not have their hearts open to these young hippie Christians and their music, and they're not wearing shoes to church. A nice scene comes when the pastor, whoever, the guy that runs the church, gives Kelsey a hard time. These ruffians don't even wear shoes. They're going to soil our rugs at our church. So the next scene, cut to, Chuck's outside the church washing the feet of the hippies as they enter his church, which is a Jesus reference because Jesus washed people's feet and so forth. So it's all very good cinematic stuff, folks. The people in the theater were marking out for this. I guess I'm in the South. I'm in the Upper South here where I'm doing this video from. So people were into this thing, you know, and so on and so forth. So the movie's good. The big swerve is that once Kelsey slash Chuck slash Fraser starts tossing those salads and eggs and so forth, scrambling the eggs and tossing the salads, he finds out, like, basically, what's his name? Lonnie basically brings a bunch of hippies over to his home, and that's when we meet Lonnie's wife, which was a big shock to Chuck, because, I mean, like I said, I think we were all thinking, at least I was, oh, okay, Lonnie's going to make a move on the pastor's daughter here and make himself the son-in-law, and won't that be an interesting thing? But that did not happen. Lonnie already has a bride, and he's loyal and so forth, and so the daughter, now this is one thing about this movie, you know, like I said, they did have a lot of storylines going on in this thing. The storyline, I guess, is probably the biggest one is, is what's that guy's name? David or Clyde or whatever. Him and the blonde, they're the big storyline. But Chuck's daughter kind of is like the reason this whole thing gets started, because she's the one that picks up the hitchhiker, and I kind of felt like her character didn't get the shine she deserved. No one ever thanks her, like, hey, daughter, you're the one that picked up this hippie, and this is all these things happened because of daughter picking up the hippie in the scene. I mean, she does get the scene, but no one in the movie acknowledges her, the daughter, as being a catalyst for all these events, the dominoes that fell. So anyway, the young guy and his blonde bride, they have your typical will they, won't they thing that runs through the whole movie. Her father does not approve, etc. It's a little, we've seen it before type of thing. We've seen that story a million times. Will they or won't they or will they or won't they, etc. We've seen it. I guess if I were in creative control of this film, which I'm obviously not, I might tone down that story a bit, like the romance, just to get a little more into the dirt with Lonnie, because it turns out his character is kind of interesting. There's a fallout between Lonnie and Chuck at some point. I would have probably put a little more focus on that, seemed a little more unique of a story, but this is a good time movie. I mean, at the end of the movie, we see the real live guy who's now, I've forgotten his name, but basically the young man, David or whatever his name is, he's a real guy. He's still alive, and he's been pastoring and all this great stuff. So the real guy shows up at the end of the movie to talk to us and wish us well and pray for us and all that good stuff. So I guess, like, to those that live, they get to dictate the movie, basically, because that's what happens. So, it is what it is. Before the movie began, there was a bit of a shoe shine. They had, like, the director and this beautiful blonde chick who was not the one in the movie, but another one who, like, sings a song for the movie. And they're sitting there with the producer and the two co-directors and the beautiful blonde young singer. And they're all talking about how this 1969 generation is so much like our current whatever the fuck generation, post-millennials, whatever they're called, generation whatever the fuck. And how the world's all shit back then and it's all shit right now. And everything comes around and blah, blah, blah. So then one thing I didn't like, and I know why they did it, because they know that 90% of the audience is going to bail as soon as those end credits begin. So for me, they gave a little bit of too much information in their little shoe shine video before the movie started. I know it's tough because it's like they need to talk about the movie because that's what they're talking about, but I want to see this thing with a fresh set of eyes. I don't want to have pre-constrained thoughts about this movie. I don't want to see actual clips from the movie right before I see the movie. I just want to see the movie. So I get it, it's a tough spot. But they knew that this little shoe shine video, I like calling it a shoe shine video. They call this thing a shoe shine, and they're basically giving us, spoilers to their own movie of sorts. Maybe not major spoilers, but to me it's a tinge offensive. And it's kind of like, oh, you're going to see this movie, but this is what happens, and this is our favorite part. Okay, let me see the goddamn movie myself. You don't have to tell me how to think and feel. I can decide myself. As a filmmaker myself, I always allow room for the audience to breathe and allow their intellect to come into the situation. I don't spoon feed people like they're infants, but that's okay. That's just me. So, in any event, I did enjoy the film. I did like it. You might be thinking, gee whiz, Mike, you don't seem like you did. Actually, I did. I did like the film. The beautiful blonde is a beautiful blonde, of course. That always helps, the one in the film. Nice to see at the end of the movie they kind of tell you what happened to these people in real life. I am a little suspicious that more happened with this Lonnie fellow that they're letting on. I'm going to have to do my research. I believe I saw a movie a couple of years ago called Jesus Music or something like that, or it was a documentary about music in this era, and I believe that this love song group and this whole Calvary Church, which takes center stage in this film, was also a part of that documentary. I mean, that was 2 years ago, I think, that I saw that thing. So in any event, folks, should you go see this movie? Yeah, why not? Go see it. you know, you don't have to be a Christian to go. They don't check underneath your fingernails, and they don't give you a fingerprint to see if you're a Christian. They don't put your hand on a stack of Bibles and see if you melt before you buy your ticket. You can just go see the movie regardless. You know, some countries you get stoned to death if you're a Christian, or you get executed publicly. So we have to be thankful that we live in a country where more or less you can do what you want as long as you don't hurt any other people, and as long as the police don't arrest you for no reason. So we have that to be thankful for. Hashtag whatever, emoji of hands put together. I had a friend once who was very concerned because my friend was trying to reach his son, and he said that his son had texted him and had sent a prayer emoji, and my friend was very concerned because his son is not religious, and he's like, why is my son sending me this prayer emoji? He's not religious. My son's been kidnapped, and someone's sending me this emoji as a cover-up. I'm like, no, I think it's just because everybody sends that stupid little, you know, hands emoji, which I think is more like a grateful emoji. It is the worst emoji ever. You know, I do it with two hands, but I'm holding the phone. You know what I mean? But yeah, so whatever the fuck. Also, speaking of emojis, I saw a little Mandela effect thing going around. There used to be a robber face emoji, like the face kind of looked like the Lone Ranger or a robber, and people are like, oh, that doesn't exist now. Well, I remember it. So yeah, okay, on a technical note, folks, you might be wondering, well, gee whiz, Mike, you don't have many subscribers on this channel right now. What the hell's going on? Well, I've recently broken up the YouTube channel, formerly known as Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel, has been broken up into 3 channels. You're currently on a Mike Messier YouTube channel. I also have a Pro Wrestling Fan and a Man and a Camera Films, which is where my original works are. If you're a Pro Wrestling Fan, subscribe to a Pro Wrestling Fan. If you're a Mike Messier fan, you're right where you need to be. If you want to see my higher end videos, where I do some nice editing with my buddy Tim and other folks that I collaborate with, Anthony, among others. Tony Caramadre has been my composer for several of these productions. My buddies at Seacon TV9, Cody Piexoto and Kevin Vendinha with Messier Mantra. Check out everything over on A Man and a Camera Films. It is a time of transition. I'll be uploading and downloading and all this, making playlists, but all my stuff is over there on A Man and a Camera Films. A Pro Wrestling Fan is the actual name of the YouTube channel. That's the one that's archived all of my stuff. I do see the security of this movie theater people are driving around in circles. They're probably wondering what the hell I'm doing. Little do they know that I'm saving the movie industry one film reaction at a time. But yes, I would go see this movie, come ye, come y'all, and see this wonderful film. Kelsey Grammer, by the way, I did read his autobiography years ago. And he had a bit of a Jesus meltdown. I mean, I'm not going to, you know, read his book if you want to know the details. But he had some thoughts about Jesus himself, Kelsey Grammer. So it was interesting to see in this movie. I don't know if he's still married. He used to have that hot blonde, you know, Playboy wife with the digestive tract problems. I don't know if you remember that whole deal, but him and his hot wife were always going on Howard Stern talking about her bowel movements of all things. I'm not making this up. I'm just remembering it, okay? So don't blame me if it's hard to hear. But anyway, I don't know if he's still with her or not. Maybe Shelley Long's still available. They can reunite. But in any event, that's it. Subscribe. No, I can't. I see I'm in the pattern saying that. But now it's a Mike Messier YouTube channel. So a Mike Messier YouTube channel is where you're at. Please share these videos. Please share the videos. Give a thumbs up. Subscribe yourself. And so there you go. Mike Messier, have a good Thursday or whatever day you're watching this.